One of the really nice things about an OFM design is that it can contain color information with it. So you can bring in a design, colorize it just the way that you want it, save it as an OFM, and it will hold that color information with it. Let's take a look at DesignShop and colorize a design, or change the colors of a design, look at where all that color information is stored, and how to manipulate it. So in DesignShop, color is kind of stored in three main places. The first one is this area down on the lower left, and that has a few pieces dealing with color. The first one, this large area here, is my current color, and if you don't know what something does, again, hover over it, a tooltip will pop up and it will tell you what it does. That's the current color. If I were to start digitizing, that's the color that I would be digitizing in. The sliver is the background color. If I click on it, I can change the background color to whatever color I want, so I could perhaps match the color of garment that I'm embroidering on. This little batch down below of colors is the active colors, and I typically think of the active colors as the spools of thread on my machine, or the cones of thread on my machine. So if I were to be sewing a design that had the same colors over and over and over again, so black and white, black, white, black, white, black, white, I might only have one cone of white and one cone of black. In my color sequence, it may be there multiple times, but on my machine and in my active colors, I'm only going to see one per color. Below those active colors, we have kind of a pool of potential colors. So I would view this as kind of my wall of colors of cones of thread that are in my shop that I can go pull from at any time. They may be ones that you have, they may not be. If you want, you can customize those to fit your needs by right-clicking on them and then selecting a color from a color list that is appropriate for what you own. So if I had Madeira Poly Neon, I could go in and change the color of the swatch that I was on. Instead of 1931, perhaps I had 1800, which is a black. And you'll notice that I did that by typing in that number field, and it went straight to that specific number. If you didn't know the number, you could scrub through all of these colors and kind of find the color that you want. Or if you thought you knew the name of it, I'm looking for a black, I could type in the name field and I could go black. Well, that's going to blackberry. That's not what I want. Emerald black, that is what I want. So I'm going to select that, hit apply, and OK. And now this swatch is that 1800 emerald black that I just chose. So again, to do that, you can right click on it and it will go straight to that. That is in the mini palette down here. If you're dealing with an active color, you can right click and say edit color to access the same thing. Now when you change an active color, you're changing essentially like swapping out of cone of thread. So if I'm using that color multiple times, it's going to change every instance of that color. On the right hand side in the project view, it will list out the color blocks in the color sequence. And if I wanted to change those colors, I could select the color, right click, go to color, and ask for a very specific color, just like you saw me do before. Or if I just wanted kind of a vague impression of what something might look like, for instance, if I wanted perhaps red pears, I could have that color block selected and I could come click on any of these colors in the mini palette and it would change automatically to that. Alright, so I'm going to expand this out. You can affect color at multiple levels. I could grab the whole design and I could click on a color and I could make everything all one color. That's not something that I typically do, but the level that you select at will change how many things that you affect. That works with all properties, and in this case it includes color. So I'm going to select half of these pears and I'm going to change them to a light green. I'm just going to grab this guy. Alright, so I've got this light green, and because I selected it in the project view at the element level. You can change individual elements. I changed half of the pairs. So half are showing a light green, half are showing a red. You can also resequence. And I had mentioned in another session about resequencing elements in the project view that you may or may not want to do that. As I drag this down, I am resequencing. It is changing, so it's showing half of the pairs, then all the leaves, then the other half of the pairs. And in doing so, I now have this lovely red travel stitch running across my leaf. So not something you typically would do unless you are very aware of all of your travel stitches and kind of what the digitizer had intended. But you can resequence elements that way. You can resequence them by color block. So let's select these red pairs, and I want to make them the same color as these light green pairs. And to make sure that I'm selecting the same color I had before, I'm going to come over and I'm going to click on the color from the active colors. So basically I'm saying, yes, I definitely want to use that same cone of thread. So when I click on that, the pairs go back to being that light green, and they are an identical light green. And you can see that here. That 1748 is that green, and then here again that 1748 is being used again. You'll also notice that in this list I have 5 color blocks, but in the active colors I only have 4 blocks. So I'm using the same, or I'm using 4 cones of thread. I'm just using the same green multiple times. All right, if I resequence this again and I drag this back up to where it was, you'll notice that it holds its color block. So I have color block 1, 1748, color block 2, 1748. If I wanted to have it adopt the color above it or just merge these color blocks, I can come over here and I can click on this icon, which will merge those 2 color blocks into one. It will merge the one below into the one above. So if I do that, I now have merged that. Since they were the same color, this will eliminate a color change command that goes to the machine, make your designs a little bit more efficient. If I wanted to, I can make the leaves the same color as the pairs by doing that again. So again, I'm adopting the color above. Let me hit undo a couple of times. And so now I'm back to where I'm sewing half the pairs. Let's make these red again so you can really see this difference. So if I wanted to have it adopt as I was resequencing, I can select those pairs. So I'm selecting that second half, I'm doing it by the color block. And then as I drag up, if I hold shift, it will adopt whatever color block it's dropping into. So in this case, it adopted that light green. So I'm going to grab these guys, I'm going to make them that light green but its own color block, and this one be a light green but its own color block. So as I'm clicking on this, I'm making a ton of color blocks, which is sending color change data to the machine. It's making your color sequence a little bit longer, and in this case I've got 4 identical back-to-back colors. And if I wanted to minimize all of those color changes and simplify my color sequence, what I could choose to do is turn on auto merge. So what auto merge color blocks does is it will look for identical back-to-back color blocks. So like in my design, I've got 4 identical light greens and they're just stacked right on top of each other. And when you turn on auto merge, it will merge those all together into one. Now it won't resequence a design. So if you had light green, light green, it's not going to take those 2 light greens and merge them together. But if it's light green, light green, it will squish all of those into one color block so that it is simplifying your color sequence and making things a little bit easier to deal with. It is sticky, so as soon as I click this, it will stay depressed, it will stay on, and it merged all of those color blocks. But if I were to bring in a new design that had back-to-back identical color blocks, it would merge the identical back-to-back color blocks in that new design as well. So if you're using this and you want to use it only once, just press it and then press it again to deactivate it. If this simplification is something that you're looking for in all of your designs, you can leave it on, and the minute you open a design, it will go through and merge those automatically. Okay, so we've got the color blocks in order. I've simplified my color sequence. We know that the properties are kept in the project view. If I right click and I go to color, I'm affecting just the color of this color block, just the one in the project view. If I were to expand this out and select just individual elements, and I did that by selecting one, holding shift and selecting on another, now I am affecting just those elements. All right, so I've got one pair and then a couple yellow pairs and then another green pair. If I choose, I can also right click on the active color and edit the color, and that's again like swapping out that cone of thread. So if I changed that light green to, let's say, a purple, or galaxy blue, hit apply and OK, now I've just changed both instances where that occurs. So you can select color blocks by doing that. You can also right click on an active color and choose to select the color, and that will select, if you look in the project view, I've selected every instance of that color. So you can use color as a selection method as well. All right, let's grab all of these guys, all these pairs. We will go back to color and we will change it back to light green. There we go. All right, so now that you have all of that, you've got the tools available to you to manipulate your colors in DesignShop. You can colorize your design lots of different ways. You can actually choose which type of thread you want to use. So when you're selecting the color in the properties, so if I right click and I go to color, you can change your color chart. So if I'm using a specific type of thread, I can go down and select that thread. So if I'm using frosted matte or something like that, I can do that. And as I change that, let's choose to 7748, apply, OK. In the project view, you'll notice that it even tells me, hey, this is frosted matte, hey, this is poly neon. So you have that information stored in that file. And again, that's going to be in an OFM file that it stores that information. Now you've got the ability to colorize your designs, save that color information, and keep all that information really handy for you, and keep track of all those colors in your embroidery designs.